What is the stupidest way you've hurt yourself? Sat on the toilet browsing Reddit so long that my leg fell asleep. Stood up, leg collapsed, stumbled, broke my ankle. Now every time my legs will fall asleep this post is gonna cross my mind. The year. I used to have one of those flip phones. I was drunk and a friend's girlfriend called me to see if I was with my friend. He didn't tell her where he was, so in order to hang up and avoid that conversation, I decided to throw myself to the ground pretty badly in order for my cell phone to close and tell her TL later that I fell and that was the reason why I hanged up. My friend stared at me and told me, "Dude, you were talking on the phone. Why didn't you just closed if she is not seeing you?" Pulling the sleeve of my hoodie up my arm, slipping, and punching myself in the boob. I have done this but wound up punching myself in the face hard. I broke my middle finger by falling downstairs. It was funny looking like I was everyone off while I was wearing a splint for it. XP. I definitely use that for evil face with tears of joy. I looked at myself in the mirror and said, pathetic. Do self-burn. Only kind of burn I can do. I burned my arm all because I didn't feel like putting on oven mitts. Double ouchie if you dropped what you held in the floor. We found this abandoned tree fort in the woods on my uncle's property, so we went and got some tools to take the bad parts down and rebuild. I was standing under the first board we tried to remove. It fell directly onto my arm and the nail stuck straight into my bicep. At least it wasn't worst case scenario. I was also looking up as they tried to remove that board, so it wasn't my eye, just my muscle, and I was fine after a couple stitches in a tetanus shot. I've had worse injuries, but I do think that was the dumbest. Repetitively biting the inside of my mouth. I feel this on another level. I once put a noodle over my finger and forgot that my finger was still in it, so I bit down, ending in my finger bleeding and my parents losing hope in me. I'm screaming. Don't scream, it's too loud. Went to scratch my nose with a hammer. Underestimated the size of said hammer. Ended up whacking myself in the forehead. There was also people watching. I slipped in the bathtub and hit my shin on the edge of the tub. While getting up, I slipped again and hit my shin in the exact same place. Alright, so not many people believe this story, but I got a prolapse from sneezing really hard on the toilet while I was taking a bath. When I was about 8, I put my finger in a pencil sharpener. Which finger? Imagine shoving in your middle finger while your hand faces away from your enemy. Definitely the best. I hate you. To give. Shredding away their happiness while you shred away your finger. I fell up a rock climbing wall in first grade and got a bruise on my spine. I climbed up a tree, grabbed onto a branch, and leaned back. The branch snapped and I fell in front of this guy I just started dating. Knocked the wind right out of me. What did he do? I walked into a door frame and crushed my hand between my body and the frame. I damaged tendons and needed physio. It hurts now in cold weather. I touched the cigarette lighter in a limousine. Kneed myself in the face kicking off blankets in the middle of the night. I was 13. Broke open 3 model rocket engines and poured the powder into a small Dixie cup. Topped it off with lighter fluid, huddled over it with a lit match, and was engulfed with a 9-foot fireball. 3rd-degree burns on my face, no more eyebrows, and loss of hair along the front of my hairline. Not quite hurt by once I cried so much that I had to puke. As of today, I burned my wrist. Really bad. Didn't think much of it. Then I took a shower, got out and put my watch on. It ripped the skin off. Then I sprayed it with cologne. I just about broke my watch and killed myself. I'm still considering my options. I can see my veins. Pics or it didn't happen. Jumped a 20 feet wide creek from about a 20 feet high cliff, thought I could just roll out of it. Tweaked my ankle on a rock and it still clicks to this day. Not sure what I did to it, but before I jumped I remember thinking this is stupid. Tripped in my living room. Threw my hands out to catch myself and miscalculated how close I was to the wall, and I wasn't able to get my hands all the way out and open in time, so I basically punched the wall with the full weight of my body behind it. I didn't actually break it, but it swelled up and hurt like for about a week. Got hit by a car a few few years ago. Looking back, I also shouldn't have followed the signal of the car that stopped that looked like he was allowing me to cross. Thus I didn't see the other car, which was out of my line of sight. I think stupidity counts for extra in your 30s. When our town briefly had those electric scooters, I took a sharp turn at full speed, couldn't turn quick enough, bounced off a car and almost over the handlebars, scraped myself up good as I fell onto the scooter and pavement at 15 miles per hour wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Got right back on the scooter and rode it to CVS to get band-aids and antibiotic ointment. It did make me feel like when I was a kid getting bike injuries from trying some stupid stunt. When I was 7 I struck my finger in the electric plug point because everyone keep telling me it is dangerous. Survived with no permanent damage. I cracked my skull open by standing on a table at a baseball game. I accidentally stabbed myself in the face with a stick. Tell your feelings to a person you love. Last summer I was on vacation at my brother's apartment in Berlin. At the day I should have went home I was locked in the apartment. I tried to climb up the balcony to get to a lower apartment, to the garden, etc., to grab a bite in town and get my train. However, I slipped and my arm got stuck in the balcony fence, leaving me hanging with my whole 80-something kilogram and a backpack only on one arm. Eventually some neighbors came after I yelled for help, but it ended up with me ripping my biceps open and some of my nerves, so I got sent into a hospital and stayed there for a week. I still have problems with the arm and my hand is a bit fucked up, slightly paralyzed. I grabbed a plastic box and cut my index finger on it. I broke my small toe by walking against a ladder. The small toe went another direction as the others and thought it was cool to break. In the summer with like 30 degrees Celsius in my room I had to wear a cast. I slow down every time I pass a ladder. I accidentally shot myself with a nail gun. I mean, nailgun. If that was a joke you really nailed it. I'm mostly in shape, but if my legs are really tired my right knee will sometimes give out due to a pre-existing injury. Received about an inch-long keloid on my hand from falling after trying to catch a train after running a Spartan race. Knee gave out, stumbled for about 20 yards until falling directly on my hand. I love tea, especially at night before bed. Drunk me put a ceramic mug in a microwave for 5 minutes and took it out with a bare hand. I was so scared to drop the mug and possibly wake everyone up late at night that I gripped the mug until I could set it down quietly. In all likelihood, I held the mug for 2 to 3 seconds. Resulted in huge blisters all over my palm. On vacation with my best friend, we were doing our makeup, getting ready to go out. Yes, you guessed it. Drunk girls getting ready in a tiny hotel bathroom. I knocked a glass onto the floor, swept it up with a towel, forgot about it, went in and stepped on small pieces of glass. Didn't do anything for 3 weeks despite the pain. Had to get surgery which resulted in 24 stitches down the middle of my foot. Recovery took 2 months. Still hurts sometimes. Back to loving tea. I also love iced tea. Decided to make a nice big pitcher of iced tea. Got a few tea bags, pop them in a big glass pitcher and proceed to pour boiling water in. Voila! Iced tea. Nope. Glass shattered. Boiling water splashed on my shirt and pants. Ended up with burns across my stomach, and one from my childhood for good measure. 5. My sister dared me to jump off a high diving board at my grandparents' house. At the time the pool was surrounded by, what I can only assume, some sort of cement-looking stuff with these little stones sticking up. Honestly, it was awful and it hurt my feet. I DK why they had it like that. So she dares me to jump off. I climb up and go to the end of the board but get scared and step backwards away from the pool. As this is happening she decides to climb up and basically jump on the part of the board that would fling me off. Exactly that happened. I ended up with a concussion and basically came to while I was getting some sort of brain scan. My mom said I was awake the entire ride to the hospital, etc. I was shocked as the last thing I remember was my sister knocking me off the diving board. Side story, my sister also dropped a 5 pounds weight on my brother's head as a child. I also punch myself a lot in the face putting on shirts and jackets. Once from tight jeans and looking too close at the zipper. My hair gets caught often. Bruises are the norm. TLDR. 1 inch long keloid on my palm from falling after a Spartan race. 2 blisters covering my hand from a hot mug. 3 left glass in my foot for 3 weeks and needed surgery. 4 burnt my stomach trying to make iced tea. And 5 my sister tried to kill me, but it was also my fault, but then she also did it to my brother. Edit. For number 2, now that I think about it, my drunk was probably moving at the speed of a drugged up sloth. Must have held that mug for an entire minute, moving it 4 inches. Once I was making spaghetti and tea on the stove at the same time. I reached over the pot and the kettle to turn on the timer and managed to give myself a second-degree burn on my wrist. I lost my balance and a cotton candy machine sliced my finger open. I would have had to get stitches if it hadn't gone through my nail as well as fingertip, so they did liquid band-aid instead. I woke up, tried to get up but slipped on my slipper and chipped my tooth. Thought it was smart to dive down my stairs head first and try to surf down. Almost broke my nose and hit my head pretty hard. Definitely not a smart move. When I was 6, I was skipping with my eyes closed and I smashed my head into a pole. I still have the scar. I was on my dirt bike at my uncle's farm and was doing jumps and stuff. I was getting close to the barbed wire fence when I decided to do a sharp turn. What I didn't notice was that I was giving the bike extra gas on the turn, so I ended up full body, hitting the fence at 50 km/h. My entire shirt and chest was ripped. I tried to pull myself out of the fence when one of the barbs got caught under the fat in my leg, and I couldn't get it out. In an act of adrenaline, I grabbed the fence with my bare hands and ripped the barb out of my leg, as well as cutting my hands. I fell back and the bike fell on top of me. It took about 2 to 3 minutes for my uncle and my dad to find me covered in blood and carried me on their four-wheeler where I went to the hospital. I cut myself with a can of Pepsi. When I was 10 years old, I was riding a bike around my yard and trying to look cool because my crush was watching me, but the front tire hit a hole and me and the bike literally flipped over forward, and I laid there like I was dead. I almost vividly remember myself in elementary school having a kink in my neck, so I decided to quickly jerk it, but instead of jerking my neck down, I slammed my head straight onto my desk. Stupidest thing ever. When I was like 13, I went to play paintball with 2 friends. We got all the gear from the staff, and as it was our first time, we were pretty excited. But before we could start, we had to do the common safety instructions. I had put on the paintball suit and mask I was given and carried the gun in my hand, pointed to the ground as I was told. It was locked just as I was shown by the instructor. At least I thought so. Anyway, he said after locking it we should check by pulling the trigger while pointing it to the ground. So stupid me did point it to the ground, but without checking if there was anything between the gun and the ground. Unfortunately, there was something between the gun and the ground. I pulled the trigger and the next second there was pain. I tried to play it cool without showing too much of a reaction, and when I looked up from my then not so white anymore shoe, I saw a whole group staring at me in disbelief, hearing an English boy asking his friend, "Dude, did he just shoot himself?" and everyone starting to laugh.